17 years. 17 years of shared dreams, whispered secrets, and growing old together. I wanted our anniversary to be a night to remember, a tribute to the journey we had traveled. The dining room was aglow with candlelight, casting a warm, flickering glow over the meticulously set table. I had prepared Jennifer's favorite dish, coq au vin, and a decadent chocolate mousse for dessert. "Jen, I'm home!" I called, carrying a bouquet of her favorite lilies, their sweet scent filling the air. Jennifer walked in, her expression tired and indifferent. She glanced at the table and then at me, her lips barely curving into a smile. "What's all this, Michael?" she asked, her tone devoid of excitement. "It's our anniversary," I said, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. I wanted to make it special. "Oh, right," she muttered, glancing away. "I guess I forgot." My heart sank. Forgotten? Our anniversary? It felt like a punch to the gut. I brushed it off, convincing myself she was just stressed from work. But as the evening progressed, her distant demeanor became more apparent. During dinner, Jennifer pushed the food around her plate, barely eating. The silence between us was thick and heavy, filled with unspoken words and lingering doubts. "Jen, is something wrong?" I finally asked, unable to bear the quiet any longer. She sighed, not meeting my eyes. "I'm just tired, Michael. Work has been crazy." Her explanation felt hollow. For months now, she had been growing more and more distant, like a shadow of the woman I married. I tried to engage her in conversation, to share stories and jokes like we used to, but she responded with monosyllabic answers, her mind elsewhere. After dinner, I handed her a small, elegantly wrapped box. "I got you something," I said, hoping it would break through her indifference. She opened it, revealing the delicate necklace I had chosen with such care. For a moment, her eyes softened, but then she closed the box and set it aside. "Thanks," she said, her voice flat. "It's lovely." My heart ached. This wasn't the Jennifer I knew. Where was the woman who used to light up at the smallest gestures, who would have leaped into my arms with joy? Later that night, we sat on the couch, the television playing a show neither of us was watching. The space between us felt like a chasm. I turned to her, desperation creeping into my voice. "Jen, I feel like we're drifting apart. Can we talk about what's going on?" She looked at me, her eyes finally meeting mine, but they were filled with an emotion I couldn't quite read. "Michael, I don't know. I need some space." Space. The word hung in the air, cold and final. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Okay, well, figure it out." But as we lay in bed that night, with Jennifer turned away from me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The woman I loved was slipping away, and I was powerless to stop it. The days that followed our anniversary were a blur of confusion and anxiety. Jennifer's indifference gnawed at me, and her distance only grew more palpable. Each morning she left earlier for work and returned home later than usual, her excuses vague and unconvincing. One evening I decided to surprise her at the office, hoping to reignite the spark that had once defined our relationship. I picked up her favorite coffee and a bouquet of fresh flowers, my heart pounding with anticipation as I walked into her workplace. "Hey, Michael," greeted Carol, Jennifer's assistant, looking surprised to see me. "What brings you here?" "I wanted to surprise Jen," I said, trying to sound casual. "Is she in?" Carol hesitated, a flicker of discomfort crossing her face. She's out for a meeting." "A meeting?" I asked, glancing at the clock. It was nearly 8 p.m. "At this hour?" "Yeah," Carol replied, avoiding my eyes. "She's been really busy lately." I forced a smile and left, the flowers feeling heavy in my hands. As I walked back to my car, a gnawing suspicion took root in my mind. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the emotional distance, it all pointed to something I was afraid to admit. That weekend, Jennifer announced that she was going out with friends for a girls' night. She dressed up more than usual, her excitement palpable. I watched her leave, my heart heavy with doubt. Unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, I decided to follow her. I trailed her car at a distance, my mind racing with what I might discover. She drove to an upscale restaurant on the other side of town, one we had never visited together. I parked nearby and watched as she stepped out of the car, her face lit up with a smile I hadn't seen in months. My breath caught in my throat when I saw a man approach her. Tall, well-dressed, and confident, He greeted her with a hug that lingered too long to be innocent. They walked into the restaurant together, their hands brushing against each other. I felt a surge of anger and heartbreak. The truth was undeniable. Jennifer was having an affair. I sat in my car, paralyzed by the weight of my discovery. Memories of our life together flashed before my eyes. Our wedding day, the birth of our children, the countless moments of joy and laughter. How had it come to this? When Jennifer returned home later that night, she found me waiting in the living room. Her smile faded as she saw the look on my face. "Michael, what are you doing up?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "I went by your office the other day," I said, my voice shaking. "Carol said you were in a meeting at 8 p.m. Jennifer's eyes widened in surprise. "Michael, I can explain." "Don't," I interrupted, my voice breaking. "I followed you tonight. I saw you with him." The room fell silent, the air heavy with the weight of unspoken words. Jennifer's shoulders sagged, and she sank into a chair, her face pale. "I'm sorry," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "I never meant for you to find out like this." "How long?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. "How long has this been going on?" "Months," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "I didn't know how to tell you. I felt trapped and lonely." "Lonely?" I echoed, incredulous. "We were supposed to be a team, Jen. You could have talked to me." "I tried," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But it felt like we were living separate lives. I needed something more, something I couldn't find with you." Her words cut deep, each one a dagger to my heart. I felt a surge of anger, betrayal, and profound sadness. "So what now?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What do we do?" Jennifer looked at me, her eyes filled with regret. "I don't know, Michael. I don't know." The night ended with Jennifer retreating to the guest room, leaving me alone with my thoughts. The future of our marriage hung in the balance, and I was left grappling with the cold reality of her betrayal. The following days were a haze of tension and silence. Jennifer and I barely spoke, each of us lost in our thoughts. I tried to go about my daily routine, but everything felt different, tainted by the knowledge of her betrayal. Every glance she threw my way was filled with guilt, and every word she spoke seemed weighed down by the enormity of our situation. One evening, unable to bear the silence any longer, I decided to confront her directly. We sat in the living room, the air between us thick with unresolved tension. "Jennifer," I began, my voice steady but firm, "we need to talk." She looked at me, her eyes weary and red from sleepless nights. "Michael, I don't know what else to say. I'm sorry, I never wanted to hurt you." "I don't want apologies," I said, my frustration bubbling to the surface. "I want answers. Why did you do it? How did we get here?" She sighed deeply, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know, Michael. I felt so alone, even when we were together. We stopped communicating, stopped connecting. I needed something, someone to fill that void." "A void?" I repeated, incredulous. "We had a good life, Jennifer. We built a family, a home. How could you throw that all away?" Tears streamed down her face as she shook her head. "It wasn't about throwing it away. It was about finding myself again. I felt lost in our marriage, like I was just going through the motions." "That's no excuse," I shot back, my voice rising. "You betrayed my trust. You betrayed our vows." "I know," she whispered, her voice breaking. "And I hate myself for it. But it happened, and we can't change that." I stood up, pacing the room as I tried to make sense of her words. "So what now? Do you want to leave? Do you want to stay with him?" She shook her head vigorously. "No, Michael. I don't want to leave you. I don't want to lose our family. But I don't know if we can fix this." Her words hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. I felt a surge of anger, mixed with a deep, aching sadness. "Do you love him?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She hesitated, and at that moment I knew the answer. "I thought I did," she finally said. "But it wasn't real. It was an escape, a way to feel something again." I clenched my fists, struggling to control my emotions. "You should have come to me, Jennifer. We could have worked through this together." "I know," she said, her voice filled with regret. "I was a coward. I took the easy way out." We sat in silence for a long time, the weight of her confession settling over us. Finally I spoke, my voice firm. "We need help. We need to see a counselor, someone who can help us navigate this. Jennifer nodded slowly, wiping away her tears. Okay, Michael, I'll do whatever it takes. But even as we agreed to seek help, a part of me wondered if it was too late. The trust that had once been the foundation of our marriage was shattered, and I didn't know if it could ever be rebuilt. That night, as I lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. The woman I loved had betrayed me, and our future was uncertain. But despite the pain, a small part of me still hoped that we could find our way back to each other, that we could heal the wounds and rebuild what was broken. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but for the sake of our family, for the sake of the love we once shared, I was willing to try. The next few days were a blur of awkward interactions and strained conversations. Jennifer and I were like two ghosts haunting the same house, careful not to cross paths too closely. Despite our agreement to seek counseling, the weight of her betrayal hung heavily between us, and I could feel the cracks in our relationship growing deeper. One evening, while Jennifer was out at what she claimed was a work event, I found myself unable to quell my growing suspicions. Her recent behavior and her secrecy all pointed to something more than just a fleeting affair. I needed answers, and I needed them now. I knew it was wrong, but I couldn't stop myself. I went to her study and powered up her laptop. My hands shook as I navigated through her emails and messages. At first, there was nothing out of the ordinary, work emails, notes from friends, but then I stumbled upon a hidden folder, innocuously labeled Personal. I opened it and my heart sank. There, laid bare before me, were months of correspondence between Jennifer and her lover Brian. They spoke of secret meetings, shared dreams, and emotions that cut me to the core. The depth of their relationship was more than I had feared. It was intimate, emotional, and serious. One message stood out among the rest. It was from just a few days ago, where Jennifer wrote about feeling trapped in her marriage and yearning for a new beginning with Brian. The words were like daggers, each one piercing deeper than the last. "Michael, why?" she wrote in one of her messages. "Why do I feel so suffocated? I need to break free, but I don't know how." I sat back, the realization hitting me like a freight train. This wasn't just a moment of weakness, it was a calculated betrayal. Jennifer was planning to leave, to start a new life without me. My anger and hurt boiled over, and I knew I couldn't keep this to myself any longer. That night, when Jennifer returned, I was waiting for her. The moment she saw my face, she knew. "Michael, what's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence. "Don't play dumb with me, Jennifer," I snapped, my voice shaking with rage. "I found your emails. I know everything." Her face went pale and she took a step back. "Michael, I can explain." "Explain what?" I shouted, unable to contain my fury. "Explain how you've been planning to leave me, how you've been living a double life with Brian." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt no sympathy. "Yes, I read it all. Your plans, your doubts, everything." She crumpled into a chair, sobbing. "Michael, I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was confused, lost." "Confused?" I echoed bitterly. "You were more than confused, Jennifer. You were deceitful. You lied to me, to our family." "I know," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "I know, and I'm so sorry. I didn't know how to handle it. I felt so trapped." "And what about now?" I demanded. "Do you still want to leave? Are you planning to run off with him?" She shook her head slowly. "No, Michael, I don't want to leave. I want to fix this if we can." Her words felt hollow, but I had to know the truth. "Why, Jennifer? Why did you do this to us?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and desperation. I felt like I was losing myself in our marriage. I needed to find who I was again, and I made terrible choices in the process. The silence that followed was heavy with pain and regret. I knew that our path to healing would be long and uncertain, but for the sake of our family, I was willing to try. "Well, go to counseling," I said finally, my voice thick with emotion. "But this is your last chance, Jennifer. No more lies, no more secrets." She nodded, her expression one of deep remorse. "I promise, Michael, I'll do whatever it takes." That night, as we lay in bed, a fragile hope began to take root. Despite the betrayal, despite the hurt, there was a glimmer of possibility that we could find our way back to each other. It wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months, I felt a spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what had been broken. In the weeks that followed our confrontation, Jennifer and I began the painstaking process of trying to mend our broken relationship. We attended counseling sessions, where a professional helped us navigate the deep-seated issues that had driven us apart. Yet, despite our efforts, the wounds were still fresh, and the pain of betrayal lingered. Every night, as we lay in bed, a chasm of silence separated us. We were two people, bound by a history, yet divided by an ocean of mistrust and hurt. I couldn't shake the image of Jennifer with Brian, the words in those emails echoing in my mind. It was as if I was living in a nightmare from which I couldn't wake. One evening, after a particularly grueling counseling session, Jennifer approached me with a look of determination mixed with sadness. "Michael, I know this is hard for you," she began, her voice trembling slightly. "But I need you to understand that I'm committed to fixing this. I need you to trust me again." I looked at her, the woman I had loved for 17 years, and felt a surge of conflicting emotions. "It's not that simple, Jen," I replied, my voice weary. "Trust isn't something you can just rebuild overnight." "I know," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "But we have to try. For us, for our family." Despite my reservations, I nodded. "Okay, we'll try." But the cracks in our marriage were deeper than either of us had anticipated. Jennifer's efforts to regain my trust often felt forced, and my attempts to move past the betrayal were met with internal resistance. Every smile she gave, every touch, every gesture of affection was tainted by the memory of her infidelity. One night, as we sat in the living room, the tension between us reached a boiling point. Jennifer had just returned from a late-night meeting, and I couldn't shake the nagging suspicion that she was still hiding something from me. "Michael," she said, trying to sound cheerful, "I picked up dinner on my way home. Your favorite, Thai." I glanced at her, my heart heavy with doubt. "Thanks," I muttered, not meeting her eyes. As we ate in silence, the weight of our unresolved issues pressed down on us. Finally, unable to bear it any longer, I put down my fork and looked at her. "Jennifer, are you still seeing him?" I asked bluntly, the question hanging in the air like a dark cloud. Her eyes widened in shock. "What? No, Michael, I told you, it's over." "Then why do I still feel like you're not being honest with me?" I demanded, my voice rising. "Why does it feel like there's still a part of you that's holding back?" She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I'm not, Michael. I'm trying my best to be open and honest with you. But it's not enough," I said, my frustration boiling over. "It's never enough. I can't keep living like this, doubting every word you say, every move you make." Jennifer sobbed, her shoulders shaking. "I don't know what else to do. I'm trying so hard, but it seems like nothing I do can make up for what I did." The room fell silent. The only sound was Jennifer's quiet sobs. I felt a pang of guilt, but also a deep, gnawing sense of hopelessness. Our attempts at reconciliation were tearing us apart even further. "I need some space," I said, finally standing up. "I need time to think." Jennifer nodded, her face a mask of pain and sorrow. "I understand." That night, I slept in the guest room. The coldness of the unfamiliar bed, a stark reminder of the distance that had grown between us. As I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't help but wonder if our marriage could survive this ordeal. The road ahead seemed impossibly long, and I wasn't sure if I had the strength to walk it. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy heart, but also a sense of clarity. If we were to have any chance of saving our marriage, we needed to confront our issues head-on, no matter how painful it might be. We needed to be brutally honest with each other, and more importantly, with ourselves. As I made my way back to our bedroom, I knew that the healing journey would be long and arduous. But for the sake of the love we once shared and the family we had built, I was willing to fight. It was time to face the breakdown and begin the slow process of rebuilding our lives from the ground up. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of resolve. The previous night's turmoil had left me exhausted, but also with a clear understanding that we couldn't do this alone. If we were to save our marriage, we needed professional help. More than just the occasional counseling sessions we had been attending. It was time to take a more intensive approach. Over breakfast, I broached the subject with Jennifer. She looked as weary as I felt, her eyes puffy from a night of crying. "Jen," I began, my voice gentle but firm, "I've been thinking." We need to take this counseling more seriously. I think we should consider an intensive couples therapy program, something more immersive. She looked up from her coffee, a flicker of hope in her eyes. You mean like a retreat or something? Yes, I said, nodding. A place where we can focus entirely on ourselves, away from the daily distractions. We need to rebuild our foundation if we have any chance of moving forward. Jennifer sighed, a mixture of relief and apprehension on her face. Okay, Michael, I'm willing to try anything. I want us to work. I want us to be whole again. I spent the next few days researching various programs, eventually finding one that seemed promising. It was a week-long retreat designed specifically for couples in crisis, with intensive therapy sessions, workshops, and activities aimed at rebuilding trust and communication. We packed our bags and set off for the retreat, both of us filled with a mixture of hope and fear. The retreat was held in a secluded, picturesque location, a large estate surrounded by forests and lakes, far removed from the chaos of our everyday lives. Upon arrival, we were greeted by the facilitators, a team of experienced therapists who specialized in relationship recovery. They welcomed us warmly, their calm demeanor immediately putting us at ease. The first session was a group introduction, where each couple shared their story. It was both comforting and disheartening to hear others' experiences. Comforting to know we weren't alone in our struggles, but disheartening to realize how deep the wounds of infidelity could cut. Jennifer and I sat together, our hands loosely intertwined, as we listened to the stories of heartbreak and betrayal. When it was our turn to speak, I took a deep breath and began. We've been married for 17 years, I said, my voice steady. But over the past few months, our marriage has been tested in ways I never imagined. Jennifer had an affair, and it shattered my trust. We're here because we want to rebuild what's been broken, but we're struggling to find our way. Jennifer squeezed my hand, her eyes brimming with tears. I made a terrible mistake, she said, her voice trembling. I lost sight of what was important, and I hurt the person I love the most. I'm here to make amends, to show Michael that I'm committed to us. The facilitators nodded, their expressions compassionate. Thank you for sharing, one of them said. Acknowledging the pain is the first step towards healing. The next few days were a whirlwind of therapy sessions, both individual and joint, as well as workshops on communication, trust-building exercises, and activities designed to reconnect us on a deeper level. It was exhausting and emotionally draining, but also cathartic. One evening, we participated in a trust exercise where we had to guide each other through a maze blindfolded. It was a symbolic gesture, representing the blind trust that is essential in any relationship. As I led Jennifer through the twists and turns, I felt a glimmer of hope. For the first time in months, I felt a connection, a spark of the partnership we once had. In our sessions, we delved into the deeper issues that had led to the affair. Jennifer spoke of her feelings of isolation and unfulfilled needs, while I confronted my shortcomings in the ways I had unintentionally contributed to the growing distance between us. One breakthrough moment came during a joint session when Jennifer finally admitted to the full extent of her emotional turmoil. I felt invisible, she confessed, tears streaming down her face. I felt like I was drowning in our routine, like I didn't matter anymore. Her words hit me hard, but they also opened my eyes to the reality of our situation. I had been so focused on providing for our family and on the day-to-day responsibilities that I had overlooked the emotional needs that were just as important. I'm sorry, I said, my tears flowing freely. I'm sorry for not seeing you, for not being there in the ways you needed. I love you, Jennifer, and I want to make this right. By the end of the retreat, we weren't completely healed, but we had made significant strides. We left with a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to continue the work we had started. The road ahead was still long and uncertain, but we were no longer walking it alone. For the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope that we could rebuild our marriage and emerge stronger from this ordeal. Returning home from the retreat, Jennifer and I felt a fragile sense of hope. The intensive therapy had given us tools and insights, but we knew that the real challenge lay ahead, integrating what we had learned into our daily lives. The first few days back were tentative, filled with cautious optimism and a renewed commitment to each other. We established a routine to ensure we maintained the momentum we had gained. Every evening, we set aside an hour to talk, free from distractions. This was our time to share our thoughts and feelings openly and honestly. It wasn't always easy. The wounds were still fresh, and sometimes the conversations were painful. But we both understood the importance of this time together. One night, as we sat on the couch, I reached for Jennifer's hand. "How was your day?" I asked, genuinely interested. She smiled a small but genuine smile that I hadn't seen in months. "It was good. I had a productive meeting at work, and I managed to finish a project that's been hanging over my head. How about you?" I told her about my day, sharing the highs and lows, and for the first time in a long while, it felt like we were connecting on a deeper level. These small moments of intimacy began to rebuild the foundation of our relationship. Despite these positive steps, the road was far from smooth. One evening, I came across an old photo album while cleaning out the attic. It was filled with pictures from the early days of our marriage, vacations, holidays, and random moments of joy. As I flipped through the pages, a wave of nostalgia hit me, followed by a pang of sadness. The happiness in those photos seemed like a distant memory. Jennifer found me in the attic, sitting on the floor with the album open in my lap. She knelt beside me, her eyes filled with emotion as she looked at the pictures. "We were so happy," she whispered, her voice tinged with regret. "We were," I agreed, my voice barely audible. "I miss those days." "Me too," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "But I believe we can find that happiness again, Michael. It won't be easy, but I'm willing to fight for it, for us." Her words gave me strength. I knew that our journey was just beginning, but with Jennifer by my side, I felt a renewed sense of determination. To rekindle our bond, we decided to revisit some of the places that held special memories for us. Our first stop was the park where we had our first date. As we walked hand in hand, we reminisced about that day, laughing at the awkward moments and marveling at how far we had come. Another evening, we went to the small, cozy cafe where we used to spend hours talking and dreaming about the future. Sitting in our favorite corner booth, we talked about our hopes and dreams, just like we did in the early days of our relationship. It felt like we were rediscovering each other, peeling back the layers of hurt, and finding the love that had always been there. But there were still moments of doubt and fear. One night, as we were getting ready for bed, Jennifer hesitated, looking at me with a mixture of apprehension and hope. "Michael," she said softly, "I need to know if you can ever truly forgive me. I don't expect it to happen overnight, but I need to know if there's a chance." I took a deep breath, considering her words. Forgiveness was a complex and challenging process, and I wasn't sure if I could ever fully move past the pain. But I also knew that without forgiveness, we couldn't rebuild our relationship. "I don't know, Jen," I admitted honestly, "but I'm willing to try. I want to try because I love you and I believe in us." She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. "That's all I can ask for. Thank you, Michael." Our journey to reconnect was filled with ups and downs, moments of joy and sorrow. But with each passing day we grew closer, our bond slowly strengthening. We were far from perfect, and there were still many challenges ahead. But for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope that we could overcome this together. As we lay in bed that night, Jennifer turned to me, her hand resting on my chest. "Good night, Michael," she whispered, her voice filled with warmth. "Good night, Jen," I replied, feeling a sense of peace. We were taking it one day at a time, but we were moving forward, together. And for now, that was enough. Weeks turned into months, and Jennifer and I continued our efforts to rebuild our relationship. The wounds were healing, albeit slowly, and there were days when the progress felt tangible. Yet the past had a way of creeping back, casting long shadows over our present. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to surprise Jennifer by suggesting a spontaneous day trip to a nearby town. It was a quaint place with charming shops and beautiful scenery, a perfect escape from our routine. She agreed with a smile and we set off, enjoying the drive and each other's company. As we strolled through the town, browsing through antique stores and stopping at a small cafe for lunch, it felt like a much-needed respite. We were laughing and talking, and for a while it seemed like the cloud of the past had lifted. But as we were leaving a bookstore, I saw a familiar face across the street. My heart skipped a beat as I recognized Brian, the man who had come between us. He was walking hand in hand with a woman I assumed was his wife, both of them seemingly happy and oblivious to our presence. Jennifer noticed the change in my demeanor and followed my gaze. Her expression turned to one of shock and unease when she saw Brian. For a moment it felt like time had stopped, and all the progress we had made was in jeopardy. "Michael, let's go," Jennifer said, her voice barely above a whisper. She tugged at my arm, urging me to leave before Brian saw us. But it was too late. Brian glanced in our direction and froze. Recognition flickered in his eyes, and he hesitated before starting to cross the street towards us. My blood boiled, a mix of anger and anxiety surging through me. "Michael," Jennifer pleaded, "please, let's just leave." I couldn't move, my feet rooted to the spot. I needed to confront him, to face the person who had played a role in our pain. As Brian approached, his expression was guarded, and his wife looked confused. "Michael, Jennifer," he greeted us awkwardly. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did we," I replied, my voice cold. "What do you want, Brian?" He raised his hands in a placating gesture. "I don't want any trouble. I wanted to apologize for everything." Jennifer stiffened beside me, her grip on my arm tightening. "Brian, this isn't the time or place," she said, her voice shaking. "No, Jen," I interjected. "I think it's exactly the time and place." Brian's wife, sensing the tension, stepped forward. "What's going on?" she asked, looking from Brian to us with concern. Brian sighed, running a hand through his hair. "This is something I should have told you," he said to her, his voice filled with regret. "I had an affair with Jennifer." His wife's face paled, and she took a step back, shock and hurt evident in her eyes. "You what?" she whispered. "I'm so sorry," Brian continued, his voice breaking. "It's over now, but I wanted you to know, and I wanted to apologize to both of you. I was wrong, and I deeply regret what I did." Jennifer's eyes filled with tears, and she looked at me, silently pleading for us to leave. I took a deep breath, trying to control my emotions. "Brian," I said, my voice steady, "your apology doesn't erase what happened, but I appreciate that you're taking responsibility. We're trying to move forward, and I hope you are too." His wife, still reeling from the revelation, looked at Jennifer with a mix of anger and sadness. "I need some time," she said to Brian before turning and walking away. Brian watched her go, his shoulders slumping in defeat. He turned back to us, his eyes filled with remorse. "I'm truly sorry," he said again before walking away to catch up with his wife. Jennifer and I stood in silence, the weight of the encounter heavy on our shoulders. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely audible. "Michael, I'm so sorry. I never wanted any of this to happen." I turned to her, seeing the pain and regret in her eyes. "I know, Jen," I said softly, "but we can't change the past. We can only move forward." We left the town in silence, the unexpected encounter leaving us both shaken. But as we drove back home, I realized that facing Brian had been a necessary step. It forced us to confront the past head-on, to acknowledge the pain, and to reaffirm our commitment to moving forward together. That night, as we lay in bed, I held Jennifer close, feeling a sense of renewed determination. The road to healing was still long, but we were on it together, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope that we would come out stronger on the other side. The encounter with Brian left us both shaken, but it also solidified our resolve to move forward. However, the path to healing was still fraught with challenges, and we knew we couldn't do it alone. It was time to seek additional guidance and support to help us navigate the complexities of rebuilding our relationship. Jennifer suggested we join a support group for couples dealing with infidelity. At first, I was hesitant. The idea of sharing our struggles with strangers felt uncomfortable. However, after some reflection, I realized that hearing other people's experiences might provide valuable insights and reassurance that we weren't alone in our journey. We found a local support group that met weekly in a community center. The first meeting was daunting. Walking into a room full of couples, each carrying their burdens, was a stark reminder of the widespread impact of betrayal. We sat in a circle, the atmosphere heavy with a mix of hope and apprehension. The facilitator, a compassionate woman named Laura, welcomed us warmly. "Thank you all for being here. Sharing your stories takes courage, and it's a crucial step toward healing." As the session began, each couple introduced themselves and briefly described their situation. Listening to their stories, I felt a strange sense of solidarity. Despite the differences in our experiences, the common thread of pain and the desire to heal bound us together. When it was our turn, Jennifer and I shared our journey. "We've been married for 17 years, I began, my voice steady but filled with emotion. Jennifer had an affair, and it shattered our trust. We've been working hard to rebuild our relationship, but it's been a challenging road. Jennifer squeezed my hand, her eyes glistening with tears. I made a terrible mistake, and I'm committed to making things right. We're here because we believe in our marriage and want to heal together. The group responded with understanding and support, their empathy offering a sense of comfort. Over the following weeks, we attended the meetings regularly, finding solace in the shared experiences and the collective wisdom of the group. One evening, after a particularly intense session, Laura approached us. "I can see the dedication you both have to repair your relationship," she said, her voice gentle. "Have you considered working with a relationship coach? Sometimes having a neutral third party can provide additional strategies and perspectives that can be incredibly helpful." Jennifer and I exchanged glances. "We hadn't thought of that," I admitted. "But we're open to anything that might help." Laura recommended a highly regarded relationship coach named David, who specialized in helping couples recover from infidelity. We scheduled an appointment, feeling a mix of nervousness and hope. David's office was a serene, welcoming space filled with calming colors and soft lighting. He greeted us with a warm smile, his demeanor instantly putting us at ease. "Welcome, Michael and Jennifer. I'm glad you're here. Let's work together to find a path forward." Our sessions with David were intense but enlightening. He helped us uncover deeper issues that had contributed to our struggles, teaching us techniques to improve communication and rebuild trust. One exercise involved writing letters to each other, expressing our feelings and fears in a safe, structured way. Reading Jennifer's letter, I felt a profound sense of understanding. She spoke of her loneliness, her need for validation, and her deep regret for the choices she had made. It was a stark reminder that her infidelity was not just a betrayal of me, but also a manifestation of her internal struggles. In my letter, I shared my pain, my anger, and my hope for our future. I acknowledged my shortcomings and expressed my commitment to working through our issues together. These exercises, though painful, brought us closer. We began to see each other not just as spouses, but as individuals with complex emotions and needs. This newfound empathy was a crucial step in our healing process. Outside of the sessions, we made a conscious effort to incorporate the techniques we had learned into our daily lives. We scheduled regular check-ins, practiced active listening, and made time for activities that brought us joy. Slowly but surely, we started to see improvements. The tension that had once defined our interactions began to lift, replaced by a growing sense of connection and understanding. One afternoon, while walking in the park, Jennifer turned to me with a tentative smile. "Michael, I feel like we're finally moving forward. It's not easy, but I'm grateful for every step we take together." I nodded, squeezing her hand. "Me too, Jen. We've come a long way and I'm proud of us. We still have a lot of work to do, but I believe we can get through this." That night, as we lay in bed, I reflected on our journey. The road had been long and arduous, but we were finding our way. With the support of our group, the guidance of David, and our unwavering commitment to each other, we were slowly but surely rebuilding our relationship. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of optimism. We were learning to navigate the complexities of our marriage with newfound wisdom and resilience. And as we faced each new challenge together, I knew that we were growing stronger, not just as a couple, but as individuals. The search for guidance had brought us to this point, and it was a journey I was grateful for. With each step forward, we were discovering the true meaning of love, forgiveness, and partnership. And in that discovery, we found hope for a brighter future. As Jennifer and I continued to rebuild our relationship, we faced a new challenge, dealing with the reactions of our families. They had been largely unaware of the turmoil we were going through, but it was becoming increasingly difficult to keep them in the dark. It was time to confront the issue head-on. One Sunday afternoon, we invited my parents over for lunch. They had always been supportive of our marriage, and I dreaded their reaction to the news. Jennifer and I prepared the meal together, our nervousness palpable. When my parents arrived, they were in high spirits, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. We exchanged pleasantries, and I could feel Jennifer's tension as we sat down to eat. Halfway through the meal, I decided to break the news. "Mom, Dad, There's something Jennifer and I need to talk to you about, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. They looked at me, their expressions turning serious. What is it, Michael? My mother asked, concern etching lines on her face. I took a deep breath, glancing at Jennifer for support. We've been having some difficulties in our marriage, I began. Jennifer had an affair, and we've been working through the aftermath. It's been incredibly challenging, but we're committed to rebuilding our relationship. The silence that followed was deafening. My parents exchanged shocked glances, and my father was the first to speak. An affair? He echoed, his voice filled with disbelief. Jennifer, how could you do that to Michael? Jennifer's eyes filled with tears, and she looked down, unable to meet their gaze. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I made a terrible mistake, and I regret it deeply. We're doing everything we can to move forward. My mother's eyes softened, but I could see the pain and disappointment in her expression. Michael, are you sure you can forgive her? She asked, her voice trembling. I nodded. It's not easy, but we're working on it. We've been going to counseling and a support group. It's a long road, but we're committed to making it work. The rest of the meal was filled with tentative conversations, the atmosphere heavy with unresolved emotions. By the time my parents left, I felt drained, but also relieved that the truth was finally out in the open. The following weekend, it was Jennifer's turn to face her family. We drove to her parents' house, both of us anxious about their reaction. Jennifer's parents had always been protective of her, and I knew this news would be a blow. As we sat in their living room, Jennifer took a deep breath and began to speak. Mom, Dad, there's something I need to tell you, she said, her voice shaking. Michael and I have been going through a difficult time. I had an affair, and it nearly destroyed our marriage. We're working hard to rebuild our relationship, but it's been incredibly painful. Her parents stared at her in shock, their faces a mix of anger and sadness. Jennifer, how could you? Her mother asked, tears streaming down her face. How could you betray Michael like that? Jennifer's father shook his head, his expression stern. I thought you two had a solid marriage. What happened? Jennifer looked at me, seeking strength. We lost our way, she admitted. I felt disconnected and made terrible choices, but I'm committed to making things right. Her parents turned to me, their eyes filled with concern. Michael, are you okay? Her father asked. How are you handling all of this? It's been incredibly hard, I said honestly, but we're both committed to healing and moving forward. We've been getting professional help, and it's making a difference. The conversation was difficult, but it brought a sense of relief. Both of our families now knew the truth, and while their reactions were mixed, they ultimately wanted to support us in our efforts to rebuild. Over the next few weeks, we had numerous discussions with our families. Some were supportive, offering encouragement and understanding. Others were more skeptical, questioning whether our marriage could truly recover. It was a difficult time, but it also brought us closer as we navigated the complexities of family dynamics. One evening, after a particularly challenging conversation with my sister, Jennifer and I sat together in the living room, holding hands. This is harder than I imagined, she said, her voice filled with exhaustion. I know, I replied, squeezing her hand. But we're getting through it together, and that's what matters. As we faced the reactions of our families, we realized that their involvement, while sometimes painful, was an important part of our healing process. It forced us to confront our past and reaffirm our commitment to each other. With each conversation, we grew stronger and more united in our determination to rebuild our marriage. The road ahead was still long, but with the support of our families and the strength we found in each other, we knew we could face whatever challenges came our way. Our journey was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, we felt a sense of hope and possibility. And that was enough to keep us moving forward. Despite the tension with our families, Jennifer and I felt it was crucial to involve them more directly in our healing process. We decided to arrange a family therapy session, hoping it would help bridge the gap and foster understanding. It was a bold move, but we believed that transparency and support from our loved ones could strengthen our efforts to rebuild. We scheduled the session with David, our relationship coach, who agreed to facilitate. Both sets of parents and my sister were invited. It was a daunting prospect, but everyone agreed to participate, recognizing the importance of the occasion. On the day of the session, the atmosphere in David's office was tense. The room was arranged in a circle, and as everyone took their seats, The weight of the unspoken words and unresolved emotions was palpable. David began with a warm welcome. Thank you all for coming. Today's session is about open communication and understanding. Michael and Jennifer have been working hard to rebuild their relationship, and your support is crucial. He turned to us first. Michael, Jennifer, why don't you start by sharing your journey and what you hope to achieve today? Jennifer took a deep breath and began. We've been through a lot over the past few months. My actions nearly destroyed our marriage, but we've been working hard to heal. We wanted to bring you all here because we need your support and understanding as we move forward. I nodded in agreement. We've made progress, but it hasn't been easy. We want to be honest and open with you because your support means a lot to us. David then invited our family members to share their thoughts. My mother spoke first, her voice filled with emotion. Michael, Jennifer, we've been so worried about you. It's been hard to understand what happened and how to move past it, but we love you both and want to support you. Jennifer's father was next. We were shocked and hurt when we found out. It's difficult to reconcile the Jennifer we know with what happened, but seeing you both so committed to healing gives us hope. My sister, always direct, added, I was angry when I first found out. I wanted to protect you, Michael, but I also see how hard you both are working to make things right. I'm here to support you, even if it's tough. David nodded, encouraging the dialogue. Thank you for sharing. There's a lot of love and concern in this room. Let's talk about how we can channel that into support for Michael and Jennifer. The conversation flowed more freely after that. Each family member expressed their concerns, fears, and hopes. There were tears, but also moments of genuine connection and understanding. We discussed ways they could support us, such as regular check-ins, attending counseling sessions if needed, and being patient as we navigated our journey. One powerful moment came when Jennifer's mother, who had been relatively silent, spoke up. Jennifer, I was so angry and disappointed, but I see now how much you're trying to make amends. I want to be there for you, to help you both heal. Jennifer's eyes filled with tears as she reached for her mother's hand. Thank you, Mom. That means the world to me. David guided us through exercises to improve communication and foster empathy. We practiced active listening, where each person had to repeat what they heard before responding. It was challenging but enlightening, helping us to truly understand each other's perspectives. By the end of the session, the tension had lessened significantly. There was still a long way to go, but we had taken an important step toward healing not just our marriage, but our relationships with our families as well. As we left David's office, I felt a sense of relief and hope. Thank you for being here, I said to my parents and sister. Your support means everything to us. Jennifer echoed my sentiments. We're grateful for your understanding and willingness to help us through this. My father hugged us both. We're family. We'll get through this together. That night, as Jennifer and I lay in bed, we reflected on the day. That was harder than I expected, Jennifer admitted. But I think it was necessary. It was, I agreed. We're not alone in this. We have each other, and now we have our families on our side. We held each other close, feeling the strength of our renewed commitment. The road ahead was still uncertain, but with the support of our loved ones and the progress we had made, we felt more hopeful than ever. The family therapy session had been a turning point, a reminder that healing wasn't just about the two of us. It was about rebuilding the web of relationships that supported our marriage. And with each step forward, we were getting closer to a place of true healing and understanding. With our families more involved in our journey, Jennifer and I felt a renewed sense of determination. It was time to start building new memories, ones that could replace the painful ones and remind us why we fell in love in the first place. We decided to focus on activities that brought us joy and reconnected us on a deeper level. One sunny Saturday, we planned a day trip to the beach. It was a place we had always loved but hadn't visited in years. The drive there was filled with laughter and music, a stark contrast to the tension that had once filled our car rides. As we arrived, the sight of the ocean brought a sense of peace. We set up our spot on the sand, spreading out a blanket and unpacking a picnic. The sound of the waves crashing against the shore was soothing, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a genuine sense of contentment. Remember the last time we were here? I asked Jennifer, smiling at the memory. She laughed, a sound that had become increasingly rare. How could I forget? You tried to teach me to surf and ended up wiping out spectacularly. I grinned, feeling a warmth in my chest. Yeah, and you never let me live it down. We spent the day playing in the waves, building sandcastles, and talking about everything and nothing. It was a reminder of the simple joys we had once shared, and it felt like we were rediscovering each other. As the sun began to set, we sat together, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. I miss this, Jennifer said softly. I missed us. I did too, I replied, wrapping my arm around her. We can have this again, Jen. We just have to keep working at it. She nodded, her eyes filled with determination. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. We continued to create new memories, planning weekly date nights and small adventures. We took a cooking class together, something we had always talked about but never did. It was messy and hilarious, and we ended up with a barely edible meal, but the experience brought us closer. We also started volunteering at a local animal shelter, a cause we both cared about. Working together to help the animals was fulfilling and gave us a shared sense of purpose. We adopted a dog, a playful golden retriever we named Max, who brought joy and energy into our home. One particularly memorable evening, we decided to have a movie night. We built a fort in the living room, just like we used to when we were younger, and filled it with pillows and blankets. We watched our favorite films, laughing and crying together, feeling a closeness that had been missing for so long. Our new activities and experiences were not just about distraction. They were about creating a new foundation for our relationship. They helped us to reconnect, to find joy in each other's company, and to build a reservoir of positive memories that we could draw upon during difficult times. However, not all moments were filled with laughter. There were still days when the weight of the past bore down on us. On those days, we leaned on the skills we had learned in therapy, reminding ourselves of the progress we had made and the love that still bound us. One evening, after a particularly tough day, Jennifer and I sat on the porch watching the stars. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and we sat in comfortable silence for a while. "Do you think we'll ever be fully healed?" she asked quietly. I thought about it for a moment. I don't know if we'll ever forget what happened, but I believe we can move past it. We're stronger now, Jen. We're more aware of each other's needs and more committed to making this work. She nodded, taking my hand in hers. I believe that too, and I'm grateful for every step we've taken together. As we sat there, looking up at the night sky, I felt a sense of peace. Our journey had been long and painful, but it had also brought us closer in ways we never expected. We had learned to communicate better, to support each other, and to cherish moments of joy and connection. Building new memories was an ongoing process, one that required effort and intention. But with each new experience, we were weaving a tapestry of love and resilience that would sustain us through whatever challenges lay ahead. The road to healing was still long, but we were walking it together, hand in hand, with hope and determination in our hearts. And as we continued to build new memories, we found strength in the love that had always been there, waiting to be rediscovered. Despite the progress Jennifer and I were making, the journey to rebuild our marriage was far from linear. We had built new memories, engaged in meaningful activities, and worked hard to restore trust. But the past had a way of creeping back, sometimes when we least expected it. One evening, after a particularly stressful day at work, I came home to find Jennifer unusually quiet. She was sitting on the couch, staring blankly at the television. Max, our golden retriever, lay at her feet, sensing her unease. "Hey, Jen," I said, trying to sound upbeat as I walked in. "How was your day?" She looked up at me, her eyes distant. "It was fine," she replied, her voice flat. I could tell something was wrong. "Are you sure? You seem a bit off." Jennifer sighed deeply, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know, Michael. I'm feeling overwhelmed." I sat down next to her, concern etched on my face. "Overwhelmed by what? Is it work?" "It's everything," she admitted, tears welling up in her eyes. "Work, the pressure of rebuilding our marriage, the constant fear that I'll never fully regain your trust. It's all just too much sometimes." I took her hand, squeezing it gently. "I know it's hard, Jen, but we're in this together. You don't have to carry this burden alone." She nodded, but I could see the turmoil in her eyes. That night, she tossed and turned, unable to find peace. I held her close, whispering reassurances. but a sense of unease settled in my chest. The next few days were tense. Jennifer withdrew, becoming more distant and preoccupied. I tried to engage her, to remind her of the progress we had made, but my efforts seemed to fall short. It was as if she was slipping away, and I didn't know how to reach her. One afternoon, I came home early from work, hoping to surprise her with a spontaneous date night. As I walked through the door, I heard her on the phone, her voice hushed and urgent. My heart sank as I realized she was talking to Brian. "I can't do this anymore," she was saying. "I'm trying, but it's so hard. I feel like I'm suffocating." A wave of anger and betrayal washed over me. I couldn't believe she had reached out to him after everything we had been through. I walked into the living room, my presence startling her. "Michael," she gasped, dropping the phone. "I didn't know you were home." "Obviously," I said, my voice tight with anger. "What the hell, Jennifer? Why are you talking to him?" Tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry, Michael. I was feeling lost and overwhelmed. I didn't know who else to talk to." I shook my head, feeling a mixture of rage and despair. "We've been working so hard, Jen. How could you turn to him again?" "It was a mistake," she sobbed. "I wasn't thinking clearly. I just needed someone to listen." "Why not me?" I demanded, my voice breaking. "Why couldn't you come to me?" "I was afraid," she admitted, her voice trembling. "Afraid that you'd see how weak I still am, that you'd give up on us." I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside me. "Jennifer, I've never given up on us, but you talking to Brian again feels like a betrayal all over again." She reached for my hand, her eyes pleading. "Please, Michael. I'm so sorry. I know I made a mistake, but I love you. I want to make this work." I pulled my hand away, needing space to think. "I need some time, Jen. I need to process this." I left the house, my mind racing. I drove aimlessly, trying to make sense of my emotions. The pain of her reaching out to Brian again felt like a fresh wound, tearing open the scars of the past. But amidst the anger and hurt, I also felt a flicker of understanding. Jennifer was struggling, just as I was, and her reaching out to Brian was a symptom of that struggle, not a sign that she didn't care about our marriage. After hours of driving, I found myself parked by the beach where we had recently visited. I sat on the sand, watching the waves crash against the shore, and allowed myself to feel the full weight of my emotions. Eventually, I realized that while Jennifer's actions had hurt me deeply, they didn't negate the progress we had made or the love we still had for each other. I returned home late that night, finding Jennifer still awake, her eyes red from crying. She looked up at me, hope and fear mingling in her gaze. "Michael," she began, but I held up a hand. "Let me speak," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "What you did hurt me, Jen, but I also understand that you're struggling. We both are. If we're going to get through this, we need to be honest with each other, no matter how hard it is." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know, I promise no more secrets. I want to be open with you. About everything." I took her hand, feeling a sense of cautious hope. "We have come too far to let this break us. Let's keep fighting, together." That night we talked for hours, sharing our fears, our doubts, and our hopes for the future. It was a painful but necessary conversation, one that brought us closer despite the setback. We both knew the road ahead would be challenging, but we were committed to walking it together. The unexpected relapse tested our resolve, but it also reminded us of the importance of honesty and communication. As we held each other close, I felt a renewed sense of determination. We would face whatever came our way, together, and continue building the life we both wanted. The relapse had shaken us, but it also served as a wake-up call. Jennifer and I knew that if we were going to make it, we needed to find new ways to strengthen our bond and cope with the inevitable challenges. We decided to take a proactive approach, seeking out strategies that could help us navigate the complex emotions and rebuild trust more effectively. One of our first steps was to increase the frequency and depth of our therapy sessions with David. We shared the details of the relapse with him, and he helped us understand why it had happened and how we could prevent it in the future. "Trust is a fragile thing," David said during one of our sessions. "It requires constant attention and nurturing. You both need to be aware of your triggers and develop strategies to manage them." Jennifer nodded, her expression serious. "I've realized that I need more support, not just from Michael, but from a network of people who understand what we're going through. David suggested joining a specialized support group for individuals who had been unfaithful, but were committed to rebuilding their relationships. It was a daunting idea for Jennifer, but she agreed to give it a try. The first meeting was nerve-wracking, but it also provided a sense of community and understanding that she had been missing. Meanwhile, I decided to attend a support group for partners who had been betrayed. I needed a space to express my feelings and learn from others who had faced similar challenges. The group offered a mix of empathy, advice, and practical strategies for coping with the complex emotions that accompanied betrayal. Another key element of our new approach was dedicating time each week for a relationship check-in. This was a structured conversation where we discussed our feelings, any issues that had arisen, and ways we could support each other better. It was a way to ensure that we were staying connected and addressing problems before they escalated. One evening, during one of our check-ins, Jennifer suggested something that took me by surprise. "Michael, I think we should take a trip together. Just the two of us. We need to reconnect away from the stress and routines of daily life." The idea intrigued me. "Where were you thinking?" "Someplace quiet and peaceful," she replied. "A retreat where we can focus on each other and our healing." We found a couples retreat center in the mountains, a place designed for reflection and renewal. It offered a mix of counseling sessions, outdoor activities, and time for personal reflection. We booked a week-long stay and prepared ourselves for the journey. The retreat center was nestled in a serene valley, surrounded by lush forests and pristine lakes. The moment we arrived, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The air was fresh and invigorating, a stark contrast to the hustle and bustle of our daily lives. Our days at the retreat were structured yet flexible. Mornings began with guided meditation and yoga, helping us center ourselves and clear our minds. The therapy sessions were intense but incredibly valuable, providing us with new tools to communicate and understand each other better. One of the most impactful exercises involved writing letters to our future selves. We were asked to imagine where we wanted our relationship to be in a year and to write about the steps we had taken to get there. Reading these letters to each other was a powerful experience, filled with hope and determination. We also spent time hiking through the forest, the tranquility of nature offering a perfect backdrop for our conversations. We talked about our dreams, our fears, and the life we wanted to build together. These moments of connection were a reminder of why we had fallen in love in the first place. One evening, we sat by the lake, the stars reflecting off the water's surface. Jennifer took my hand, her eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Michael, I'm so grateful for this time together. I feel like we're finding our way back to each other." "I feel the same way," I said, squeezing her hand. This has been exactly what we needed. The retreat was a turning point for us. We returned home with a renewed sense of purpose and a deeper understanding of each other. We had learned new ways to support each other and cope with the challenges that lay ahead. Incorporating what we had learned at the retreat, we continued to prioritize our relationship. We scheduled regular date nights, explored new hobbies together, and remained committed to our therapy sessions. The support groups provided us with a sense of community and accountability, reminding us that we were not alone in our journey. One particularly memorable date night involved taking a dance class. Neither of us was a particularly good dancer, but the experience was filled with laughter and joy. It reminded us of the importance of having fun together and not taking ourselves too seriously. As the months passed, we began to see real progress. The trust that had been shattered was slowly being rebuilt, and our bond grew stronger each day. We were learning to navigate the complexities of our emotions with grace and understanding. The new approach we had taken was not a magic fix, but it provided us with the tools and strategies we needed to heal and grow. We were still a work in progress, but we were moving forward, together. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Jennifer turned to me with a smile. "I feel hopeful, Michael. For the first time in a long time, I truly believe we can do this." I looked at her, feeling the same sense of hope. "So do I, Jen. We've come a long way, and I'm proud of us." We held each other close, knowing that the journey was far from over, but confident in our ability to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, we were building a new future, one filled with love, trust, and endless possibilities. As the seasons changed, Jennifer and I continued to work on our relationship. The new strategies we had adopted were making a significant difference, and we were gradually building a stronger, more resilient bond. However, the journey was far from smooth, and we faced our share of milestones and setbacks. One of our significant milestones came when we celebrated our 18th wedding anniversary. This time, the atmosphere was different. There was a sense of renewal and genuine connection that had been missing for a while. We decided to keep the celebration simple yet meaningful. Jennifer suggested we recreate our first date, which had taken place at a small, cozy Italian restaurant downtown. The restaurant had changed little over the years, and walking through its doors brought back a flood of memories. We laughed and reminisced over a bottle of wine, recalling the nervous excitement of that first date. As we enjoyed our meal, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey we had undertaken together. Despite the challenges, we had come a long way, and this celebration felt like a testament to our resilience. At the end of the evening, Jennifer surprised me with a gift, an album filled with photos and mementos from our time together. "I wanted to create something that reminds us of our journey," she said, her eyes shining with emotion. "The good times and the bad, it's all part of who we are." I was deeply touched by her gesture. "Thank you, Jen. This means so much to me." We spent the rest of the night looking through the album, sharing stories and reliving cherished moments. It was a perfect way to celebrate our anniversary and reaffirm our commitment to each other. However, not all days were filled with such joy. We faced several setbacks that tested our resolve. One particularly challenging period came when work pressures began to mount for both of us. The stress from our jobs spilled over into our home life, leading to tension and misunderstandings. One evening, after a long and grueling day at work, I came home feeling irritable and exhausted. Jennifer was already home, dealing with her stress. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and it didn't take long for a minor disagreement to escalate into a full-blown argument. "Why can't you understand that I'm under a lot of pressure?" I snapped, feeling overwhelmed. "And you think I'm not?" Jennifer shot back, her voice tinged with frustration. "We're both dealing with a lot, Michael. We need to support each other, not tear each other down." Her words hit me hard. I realized that I had been so wrapped up in my stress that I had failed to see hers. "You're right," I said, my voice softening. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take it out on you." Jennifer sighed, her anger dissipating. "I'm sorry too. We're both under a lot of stress, but we can't let it drive a wedge between us." We took a deep breath and sat down to talk, acknowledging our stress and finding ways to support each other better. It was a difficult conversation, but it helped us to reconnect and remind ourselves of the importance of being each other's rock during tough times. Another setback occurred when we encountered a financial issue that required us to dip into our savings. The unexpected expense created a strain, and we had to adjust our budget and plans. The financial pressure added another layer of stress, and we had to work hard to maintain our equilibrium. Despite these challenges, we remained committed to our regular therapy sessions and support groups. The tools and strategies we had learned continued to help us navigate the ups and downs of our relationship. We also made sure to prioritize our relationship check-ins and date nights, ensuring that we stayed connected, even during difficult times. One of the most important lessons we learned during this period was the importance of patience and forgiveness. There were days when old wounds resurfaced and moments when doubts and fears threatened to derail our progress. But each time we chose to face these challenges together, with honesty and compassion. Our support groups played a crucial role in helping us stay grounded. Hearing the stories of others who had faced similar challenges reminded us that setbacks were a natural part of the healing process. We found solace in the shared experiences and drew strength from the collective wisdom of the group. As we navigated these milestones and setbacks, we discovered a deeper level of resilience within ourselves and our relationship. We learned to celebrate the small victories and to view setbacks not as failures, but as opportunities for growth and understanding. One evening, after a particularly challenging day, Jennifer and I sat on the porch watching the sunset. The sky was painted with hues of orange and pink, and the tranquil scene provided a much-needed sense of calm. "We've been through so much," Jennifer said, her voice thoughtful, "but I feel like we're getting stronger every day." I nodded, taking her hand in mine. "We are, and I'm proud of us for not giving up. We're learning and growing together." As we sat there, I felt a deep sense of gratitude for the journey we had undertaken. It was not an easy path, but it brought us closer and taught us the true meaning of love and commitment. The road ahead was still filled with challenges, but with each milestone and setback, we were building a stronger, more resilient bond. And as we faced the future together, I knew that we had the strength and determination to overcome whatever came our way. As the months passed, Jennifer and I continued to work on our relationship, and slowly but surely, we began to see the fruits of our labor. The setbacks we had faced only strengthened our resolve, and we were starting to rebuild the trust that had once been shattered. One significant step in this process was the decision to renew our wedding vows. It was Jennifer's idea, and at first I was hesitant. The idea of standing before our family and friends, publicly reaffirming our commitment after everything that had happened, felt daunting. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it was a powerful symbol of our journey and our renewed dedication to each other. We decided to hold the ceremony in our backyard, a place that had always been a sanctuary for us. We kept it small and intimate, inviting only our closest family and friends. The preparations were a labor of love, and as we worked together to plan the event, it felt like we were creating a new chapter in our lives. On the day of the ceremony, the weather was perfect. The sun was shining, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the trees. We decorated the backyard with fairy lights, flowers, and candles, creating a magical atmosphere. As our guests arrived, I felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement. My parents, Jennifer's parents, my sister, and a few close friends were all there, their faces filled with warmth and support. Seeing them gathered together reminded me of the importance of the journey we had undertaken and the love that surrounded us. Jennifer looked stunning in a simple white dress, her eyes sparkling with emotion as she walked toward me. I could see the love and determination in her gaze, and it filled me with a sense of hope and gratitude. The ceremony was beautiful and heartfelt. We exchanged vows that we had written ourselves, each word a testament to the struggles we had faced and the strength we had found in each other. "Michael," Jennifer began, her voice trembling with emotion, "I stand here today, not just as your wife, but as your partner in this incredible journey. I promise to continue working on our love, to be honest and open, and to cherish the bond we have rebuilt. I love you more deeply than words can express, and I am committed to our future together." My eyes filled with tears as I listened to her words. When it was my turn, I took a deep breath and spoke from the heart. "Jennifer, these past months have shown me the true meaning of love and forgiveness. I promise to be there for you, to support you, and to continue building a life filled with trust and happiness. I love you, and I am honored to be your partner, now and forever." As we exchanged rings, the symbolism was not lost on either of us. It was a renewal of our commitment, a promise to each other and ourselves that we would keep fighting for our love. After the ceremony, we celebrated with a simple but joyous reception. There was laughter, music, and dancing, and the atmosphere was filled with a sense of renewal and hope. Our family and friends surrounded us with love and support, and it felt like we were truly beginning a new chapter in our lives. In the weeks that followed, the renewed trust between us became more apparent. We communicated more openly, shared our thoughts and feelings, and made time for each other despite our busy schedules. The little gestures of love and appreciation became a regular part of our days, reinforcing the bond we had rebuilt. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Jennifer turned to me with a smile. "I feel like we're finally in a good place," she said. "We've come so far, and I'm grateful for every moment." "I feel the same way," I replied, taking her hand in mine. Renewing our vows was a turning point. It reminded me of why we fell in love in the first place, and why we're still fighting for our future. As we sat there, the sun dipping below the horizon, I felt a sense of peace and contentment that had been missing for a long time. The journey had been difficult, but it had also brought us closer and made us stronger. We had faced our fears, navigated the setbacks, and emerged with a deeper understanding of each other and our love. In the months that followed, we continued to build on this foundation. We planned more adventures, took time for ourselves, and remained committed to the practices that had helped us heal. The support groups, therapy sessions, and regular check-ins were now an integral part of our lives, providing us with the tools we needed to maintain our relationship. One particularly memorable trip was a weekend getaway to a cabin in the mountains. It was a chance to escape the pressures of daily life and reconnect with nature and each other. We spent our days hiking, fishing, and sitting by the fire, talking about our dreams and aspirations. As we lay under the stars on our last night, Jennifer turned to me with a look of contentment. "This is exactly what I needed," she said. "A reminder of how far we've come and how much we have to look forward to." I nodded, feeling the same sense of gratitude. "We've built something strong, Jen. Something that can withstand whatever comes our way." The journey to rebuild our marriage had been filled with challenges, but it had also been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. We had learned to trust again, to love deeply, and to appreciate the moments of joy and connection. As we faced the future together, I knew that we were ready for whatever came our way. We had renewed our trust and commitment, and we were stronger and more united than ever. The road ahead was filled with promise, and I looked forward to every step of the journey with Jennifer by my side. Our renewed commitment and the strength we had built in our relationship were soon put to the ultimate test. Life, as it often does, threw us an unexpected curveball that challenged everything we had worked for. One evening, Jennifer and I were sitting on the porch, enjoying the quiet after a long day. The sunset painted the sky in beautiful hues, and we were talking about our plans for the future when Jennifer's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her face immediately paled. "It's my boss," she said, her voice shaking. "I have to take this." She stepped away to answer the call, and I could see the tension in her posture. She spoke in hushed tones, and though I couldn't hear the details, I knew something was wrong. When she returned, her eyes were filled with a mix of anxiety and determination. "Michael, that was my boss. They're transferring me to the New York office," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's a huge promotion, but it means moving there for at least a year." The news hit me like a punch to the gut. The thought of being separated, especially after everything we had been through, was almost unbearable. "When do you have to decide?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "By the end of the week," she replied, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't know what to do. This is an incredible opportunity, but I don't want to jeopardize our relationship." We spent the next few days in a state of turmoil, weighing the pros and cons and discussing our options. The promotion was a significant step in Jennifer's career, but the idea of a long-distance relationship brought back all our fears and insecurities. One evening, we decided to talk it through with David, our therapist. "This is a major decision," he said, his voice calm and reassuring. "It's important to consider not just the practical aspects, but also how it will impact your relationship." Jennifer spoke first. "I feel torn. This promotion is something I've worked so hard for, but I don't want to lose what we've rebuilt." I nodded, feeling the same conflict. "I want to support you, Jen, but I'm also scared. We've come so far and I don't want to risk losing you." David listened carefully, then offered his perspective. "Long-distance relationships are challenging, but they can also be an opportunity to strengthen your bond. It requires trust, communication, and a commitment to making it work. Have you considered how you might handle the separation and stay connected?" We hadn't, not in detail, but as we talked, ideas began to form. We could visit each other regularly, make use of technology to stay in touch, and set clear goals for the future. The key, David emphasized, was maintaining open communication and being intentional about nurturing our relationship. After much deliberation, Jennifer and I made our decision. She would take the promotion, and we would face the challenge of a long-distance relationship head-on. It was a daunting prospect, but we were determined to make it work. The day Jennifer left for New York was one of the hardest of my life. We stood at the airport holding each other tightly, both of us fighting back tears. "We can do this," she whispered, her voice filled with determination. "We've faced tougher challenges, and we've come out stronger." "I know," I replied, my heart aching. "I believe in us. We'll make this work, Jen. I promise." The first few weeks were incredibly tough. The distance felt like a physical pain, and I missed her presence every day. But we stuck to our plan, calling each other every night, sharing our days, and making time for virtual dates. We even set up a ritual of watching the same movie simultaneously, discussing it afterward as if we were together. Jennifer threw herself into her new role, and I could hear the excitement and fulfillment in her voice. It was clear that the promotion was everything she had hoped for, and while it was hard not to be with her, I took solace in knowing that she was thriving. One weekend, I flew to New York to visit her. Seeing her again after weeks apart was both exhilarating and emotional. We spent the weekend exploring the city, enjoying each other's company, and reaffirming our commitment to making this work. As the months passed, we settled into a rhythm. The distance was still challenging, but it became a part of our new normal. We celebrated our small victories and supported each other through the tough days. Our relationship grew stronger, rooted in the trust and communication we had worked so hard to rebuild. One evening, during one of our nightly calls, Jennifer shared some exciting news. "Michael, they're offering me a permanent position here, but I have a condition." "What's that?" I asked, curious. "I told them I'd only consider it if they allow me to work remotely for part of the year. That way, I can be with you more often." My heart swelled with gratitude and love. "That sounds perfect, Jen. I'm so proud of you." Her proposal was accepted, and we began to plan for a future that balanced her career and our relationship. We decided to split our time between New York and home, creating a life that accommodated both our needs. The final test had been daunting, but it proved to us that we could overcome anything together. Our journey had been filled with challenges, but it had also brought us closer and strengthened our bond in ways we never imagined. As we faced the future, we knew that there would be more obstacles, but we were ready. We had learned to trust each other, to communicate openly, and to support one another through the toughest times. And as we continued to build our life together, we did so with the knowledge that our love was strong enough to withstand any test. The road ahead was still filled with uncertainty, but we faced it with hope, determination, and a deep, abiding love. Together, we were ready to take on whatever came our way, knowing that we had the strength and resilience to overcome any challenge.